We purchased this cabinet from a cabinet maker in Dallas. This video will show you how to set up your cabinet. When you get your cabinet, there will be cellophane wrapped all the way around here holding this in place. You just cut it off, remove that cellophane, then you can remove these parts here, also wrapped in cellophane. Your screws, an instruction DVD or CD are inside of here. So we have this long board here, and it's got a slant. What this board is used for is you will mount it against the wall with the slant down towards the wall. So if we put that against the wall there, you would find two studs, usually 16-inch centers, drill holes in this board, and then you would mount that to the wall. And then what happens is the top half of your cabinet here sits right on top of that, and it's strong enough to hold it. As long as you put this in studs, the weight of the cabinet and your Pachinko machine will hold it in place. You also have a couple of boards just like this, two of them, and they are legs. So if you don't want to hang it on the wall and you want to put your cabinet on the table, there's a couple of pre-drilled holes here. You'll match them up with a couple of pre-drilled holes on the side, and you'll screw them in place with the hardware in this package. There's a screw, there's also a finishing washer, and in the CD it'll tell you which screws go to which, because you got some screws for here. You also have some screws for your machine. There are pre-drilled hole here and here, same on the other side, and so that's for whenever you set your machine in here, you'll use a finishing washer and one of those screws, and you'll screw into your machine to hold it in place. On some machines, the pre-drilled hole at the bottom may hit a metal plate on your machine. A few of them it does, in which case you'll have to either not use a screw there or move your screw up a little bit higher. Last thing is your ball funnel. This box has a couple of pre-drilled holes on the bottom. There's also a couple of pre-drilled holes up here. You'll set this on top, and you'll take a couple screws and you'll go straight up into the box. Also include a ball tray. Basically, you would slide it here, right in the center. Balls will drain, land in this tray, and then when you need to refill your machine, you pull the tray out, and then you carefully pour them into the ball funnel on top. Now, occasionally you'll need to get to the back of your machine, maybe to replace the battery, maybe if there's a ball jam you need to clear. So in order to get to the back of the machine, if this is sitting on a table, it's real easy because you can turn it around, reach back, and do whatever you need to do. If it's mounted on the wall, that's a little bit harder. You have a couple of options. Option one is get someone to help you, and y'all both pick up the cabinet and lift it off the wall and set it down, because it's just sitting on here. But two people can pick it up, set it down, and then you can work on it. Another option, pretty popular with machines from the 70s, is you can cut a hole in the side of the cabinet, maybe a little 2-inch hole with a, like you're doing for a doorknob, one of those round saws. Cut a hole, and you can stick your finger in, and there's usually a latch, and you can activate that latch with your finger, and when you do, you're able to swing open your Pachinko machine from the cabinet to access it from the back. And since every machine is different, the hole placement would be different. Sometimes it's on the left, sometimes on the right, sometimes at the bottom, sometimes at the middle. So you just have to figure it out from your own machine. I've got some pictures on the site I'll include in this video shortly. The thing is, how many holes do you want? There's the key, which typically over here operates a latch, and that latch opens the entire machine. So you would probably have one hole on this side somewhere, since you don't have keys, they didn't ship keys, the lock. You would activate the mechanism with your finger, and then you can swing the whole thing open. You also have the option, usually on the opposite side, but not always, there's a latch just to open the playfield glass. So if you want to open that up because maybe a ball is jammed in there, or maybe you need to get to the play tray because someone put marble in there and everything's stuck, you could have a hole over here just to open the playfield door and access that. You could open it with just the one. Most people opt for just one hole, open the whole machine, but you can't do two. The back of a machine, there's a lock right here, and the hardware is back here, and it basically controls this latch here, and there's also one at the top just out of view. That opens the entire machine. So I'll do that now. Flip this down, and you can see the entire machine would swing open. So when you screw the screws through the cabinet, they screw into this frame here, and you can swing your machine open. So if you don't want to cut a hole in your cabinet, another thing you could do is disable the mechanism that locks this in place. So that way you could swing it open freely. You could do that by removing all the hardware. Here's all the lock mechanism. You could just unscrew that, take that out completely, which has, you can see this point here. That's what latches into this metal here. So you can remove all that, or you could remove this catch and the other one at the top, and then your machine would just swing open. You just push it closed. You may not want to do that if you have little kids around though. The other thing you could do is you could replace the original lock with a new one, basically an arcade style lock. So this lock, you can't get a key for it. What you could do is you could remove all of this, remove all the hardware, and then install a new lock. And the way the lock would work, you wouldn't be able to use these latches either. The lock would, an example of one of the locks, so it's got a long barrel and this arm here, which is what actually locks. So we put it in the machine, and then as you lock it, this arm would turn. So you'd have to cut a groove into this wood, maybe even into your cabinet, depending on how long this piece is. And you may even have to drill out your hole bigger to make sure that this would fit in it. Now on this machine on the opposite side, there is a loop right here, and that loop is how you open the playfield door. So you lift up on it, and then you can swing the playfield door open so you can gain access. So you could drill a hole in the cabinet that would allow you to reach in through the cabinet and raise this. There's really no end to the way you can modify these machines to do something with the lock. I've seen folks who will attach a chain to these latches, and the chain will drop down, and they'll drill a hole in the bottom of the cabinet, and the chain will drop straight down the bottom, and then they can just pull that chain from beneath. They could also wire it somehow so that the wire goes up to the top of the cabinet. I've seen other folks take out the lock and put a chain through the lock hole and have it activate the latches. I've got this Pachinko machine mounted into this wall cabinet. Now if I ever need to get behind the machine, I've devised a way to do that since there's no keys for these locks. What I did is I've got a chain down at the bottom that I can pull, and when I pull that chain, it'll release the latch and back, and then I can swing the machine open. So I drilled a hole through this, attached a chain, and I drilled a hole in the wood cabinet, and as I pull the chain, it activates the latch. Now while most Pachinko machines will fit just fine in these cabinets, and the dimensions are on the website, some of the older ones, especially the single ball machines, they're too wide. They won't fit. They're off by about 1/8 of an inch. So what you can do in that case is you can sand down both sides of the wood to remove a few layers. That way you can get the cabinet to fit. Sand the sides of the cabinet itself some to make it fit easier. You can't sand too much because you end up hitting the front of your machine, and you don't want that to get damaged. Now, the place where you drop the balls through the top, when they come through, there's a hole here. Now that hole, when you put your Pachinko machine in, may hit the wood of the top of the machine, and if that's the case, then you're going to want to cut a notch. So you can see kind of a round notch here that I've cut. And so what I did is I put this in the cabinet, then I marked on here with a pen, and I took it out and I cut it. Now it's always best if you can have two people help you with this, but when you want to put the cabinet in, you want to set it in at the bottom first, but just a little bit, and then you tilt it forward, transform up there, and then you slowly start pushing it all the way in, a little at a time, all around the machine, top and bottom, until basically you get it flush. So it's flush right here. And then once it's flush, then you can mount those screws. Now with these single ball machines, there is no key. There's no lock, so you don't have any way of drilling a hole in the side to activate the lock mechanism to open it. So really your only option is either have it as a table mount, or if you have it on the wall, you're going to have to pick it up if you ever need to get to the back. You could actually, if you wanted to, cut a hole on both sides up here at the top. Typically on these old single balls, you've got a long bolt and a wing nut going through a bracket. And if you cut a big enough hole, then you could reach in with your fingers, undo both wing nuts, and move the bolt out of the latch. And when you do that, then you're able to pull the machine forward and then lift the machine out. There's a couple notches here where the machine sets in. So that's one option with these old single balls. So here's all the hardware. These long screws are for screwing into the wall, into the 2x4s. I actually use my own screws, and I use bigger ones than these. I'd recommend that, although the cabinet maker says these are fine. I'm just overcautious. These next two by themselves, these are for screwing the ball funnel into the top. Then you have these 4 short ones. These are for screwing the legs into the side if you need to, if you're going to do a tabletop mount. And these 4 longer ones are for screwing into the side of the cabinet to hold your machine in place.